But I thought, what a great marketing
But
idea, right?
look
Blow
at
up your
Brent's
cover.
smile. Look at Brent's smile. He's like, yes.
Yeah, man. You're giving me ideas. I should be writing all this down. What am I
You're
doing
like,
here?
Trading the sirens and foods for the stars, building new worlds in a galaxy far. Don't know the roads, but we're flying in fast.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the FNG podcast. We have with us today Charli Cox. Charli is the best-selling multi-genre author who came from fiction. Her background, she's done HVAC management, IT office management, freelance bookkeeping, and done a few laps around the working world before landing in publishing. Her published book was Faye War, or her first published book was Faye War's Northwest Front through Canon Publishing, blending Pacific Northwest myth and legend with military fantasy. Her second book, Whistles of the Indigo, did I get that right? Windigo, okay, is set in Joint Task Force 13 alternate history universe, which is also a military fantasy, from Three Ravens Publishing, a post-Civil War story following cavalry unit that rides straight into something out of the American frontier nightmare. That book was a finalist for the 2026 Imagine Awards in historical fiction. She also has a short fiction through Chris Kennedy Publishing in the Phoenix Initiative, First Missions, Bureau 42, Express Elevator to Hell, and also Running with Sharp Objects, which our own Will Crudge was in. Charli, welcome to the podcast. Love to have you here. This is so cool meeting you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the invite. Happy to be here. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Really...
Yeah. We love having people on that we can just chat with. And it's so interesting to walk through people's, just how they got here and how they, how you really started like writing, right? So tell us a little bit about your story. Like, how did you get into this? How did you decide you wanted to be an author?
So it's a very circuitous path. I started out basically falling back into writing. I always enjoyed writing when I was younger. I wrote little tiny silly stories with my friends, and in high school and college, I always did well in English. The teacher who cited an essay was like, okay, night before, cram it, turn it in, get an A, no problem. And then, life happened, and adulting and jobs and kids and responsibilities and all the things. And I didn't have time to write, nor did I ever think that I could make a career out of it because, I needed a real job. So I did that for a while until COVID happened. And at the end of 2020, I found myself with a whole lot of free time on my hands. So after a few months of being working part-time and kind of trying to figure out what to do with myself and not really having much of a sense of purpose after being the main breadwinner for so long, I saw an open call for a short story through New Mythology Press, which is one of Chris Kennedy Publishing's imprints for fantasy, and went ahead and thought about it and wrote a story and turned it in, and it was crap. It went nowhere. But through the process, I learned that, oh, hey, I can write a story. I can finish this. I can research. And I kept going and kept trying and kept learning. And along the way, a bunch of people have helped me and given me feedback. And years later, here I am.
That's so awesome. Yeah, we very much the same thing for me. And I think the rest of these guys, like we all kind of started off doing our careers, doing other things, military or fire or whatever. And at some point you just kind of end up like, I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted to do that. And you just kind of like, well, I wonder if I can do it. And so you start pounding out some words and then eventually it's like you said, everything kind of snowballs into, you just get better and better at it. So yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah.
Good. What was that?
Just and tenacity. Don't ever give up.
Yes, very much so. Tell us about your current books. Now you write, tell us about Faye Wars. I guess that would be the place to start is what does Faye Wars look like and where does that go? How did you get involved with that?
Yeah. So Faye Wars is a shared universe from Canon Publishing. The series creators are J.F. Holmes, who is the president of Canon, and Lucas Markham. And in Faye Wars, elves from another dimension invade the United States through these glowing magical portals. And each book takes place in a different geographical area. The first one is set in New York City because that's where John Holmes is from. And in that one, the portal opens in Central Park and a D&D campaign comes walking through. And his main character, Kincaid, is a special operator. He's there on a mission as soon as he finishes his mission, they're about to exfil. All these dragons and orcs and elves show up, and he's like, "What the frick is this?"
Yeah.
And it goes from there. So the first book is set in New York. The second book's in Pennsylvania. There's one in California. And how I ended up in Faye Wars, my first LibertyCon was 2023, first convention I'd ever gone to. And my husband had actually done some beta reading for homes years ago. And we were in the dealer hall just, visiting and talking with people. And he and Holmes struck up a conversation. And so I kind of walked over because I had no idea who my husband was talking to. And, just kind of walked up, and he happens to see that I have an author badge, even though I didn't attend as a pro, because at this point I just had a couple of short stories, and who the heck am I? I'm not a pro. I'm just some person who wrote a couple stories, whatever. And so I attended as a fan just to enjoy the con and get to meet people and see what it was all about. And as we're talking, John looks down, sees my badge. He's like, "Oh, you're an author. What do you write?" I said, "Oh, wrote some short stories, working on this, working on that." And he's like, "Oh, well, have you ever, thought about, writing books?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. That sounds like fun." And so he basically invited me to write in the Faye Wars. I had submitted a story to his High Caliber Awards previously, and my story didn't make the cut. I think he only took 8, and I'm not sure how many submissions he got. But when I was talking with him, he actually remembered that story. And he's like, "Yeah, that was a good story. The others were better, but yours was good. It had good bones. So yeah, let's, write a book, set it in the Pacific Northwest because that's where you're from, and send it to me and we'll go over it and we'll go from there."
That's
a pretty cool
so
story.
Cool. I want to say in 22 or 23 that I went to LibertyCon, and I want to say like John had a booth like set up like kind of across from like the coffee stand or something like that. And I talked with him for just a little bit, and it honestly kind of scared me because he was like, "Oh, hey, do you write this? Do you do that?" And at the time I was like, I had written nothing. I was just kind of trying to learn. And I was like, "Oh my word." He thinks I could actually do this. And it was such a scary moment for me where it was like, whoa. You're talking to somebody that like, you think I'm way more than I am.
Right.
And it was a little freaked out. I'm glad you took the leap and did it. And it scared me to death. So
there was definitely some trepidation involved, believe me. It's like,
sure.
I've written a couple stories, and at this point in time, I had written another book. This was the Windigo, actually. I wrote, that was the first book I wrote. So it was like, oh yeah, I know how to write a book. I can write another one. Sure, no problem. But that was fun because he was, again, with each book taking place in different geographical areas, I was able to lean into the, local myth and folklore and Native American mythology. And that was a lot of fun to do research on that. And when you think about the Pacific Northwest and creatures and cryptids, the first thing most people think of is Bigfoot, right? Well, they don't like to be called Bigfoot. How would you like it if they called you Tiny Dick? I mean, it's a thing. So we call him Sasquatch, and that's what the Native Americans call them. And so that's how Gunny the Sasquatch came to be part of my story. It actually started with him as far as, "Hey, Pacific Northwest, you need some creatures, you need this, you need that. What are you thinking?" I was like, "I need a Sasquatch with a 50. And he went, "Perfect, write it."
That is so cool.
That's awesome.
Do you find that you get people that is there a crossover, I guess, between people that read science fiction, fantasy type stuff and the people that are out there like that are just Sasquatch people?
I think so, because a lot of my early marketing, I did hashtag Sasquatch and hashtag Bigfoot is real and things like that. And so I think there was some crossover. I actually had one person on TikTok send me a message, and he was very, very upset with me because apparently he didn't realize that I'm a fantasy author. I write fiction, and he's a true Bigfoot believer. And in his words, I was the problem with the Bigfoot community. And I was shocked. I'm like, "Buddy, I write fantasy, I write fiction."
You want to hear a funny story about that?
Sorry?
Like, do you guys remember the comedian Tom Green? Yeah. So he's back in Canada. So he's from Ottawa, and he has a show called The Tom Green Farm. And he had this guy, and I cannot make this up if I wanted to, who telepathically communicates with Bigfoot or Sasquatch or whatever. And he just happened to find the one woman and fall in love with her and vice versa, who can also do this amazing feat. It was the most hilarious thing. So when you just mentioned that guy, how dare you? That's the first thing that came to mind is those type of people.
Yeah,
the-
I'm not too worried about ostracizing them. I'm not a divisive person, but I think I could shrug that one off.
I was just shocked that out of nowhere, this person just came at me, attacking me like that. I'm like, I never said I was in, I never said I was a researcher. I never said I've met one. I haven't met one. Are they real? I don't know. I don't know if they're real or not. There are so many stories and so many different cultures across our country and our continent that talk about this creature. So at some point there had to be something that sparked this, right? But
Well, the
as
lore
far
is
as
growing
is
as it
Sasquatch
goes.
real, I don't have any personal. Well, I don't have any personal confirmation. I haven't met one. I haven't talked to one. I think it'd be cool, but I don't know.
Yeah. I think I'm about 4 or 5 hours north of you from where you live.
Yeah.
And, we have what do I want to call it? We have a large, Sasquatch community of followers in our area, and specifically in the little area I live in, because there's been a lot of sightings and people see it, whatever. And so in my little town, there's like, the Sasquatches on the side of the, like the murals are kind of all over the place. And, yeah, we were camping a few years ago, and at one of the group areas, they had this whole group of guys had the screen is set up, and they're giving this presentation on like all of the Sasquatch stuff that they found. I went over to sat in on it for a little bit. I was like, oh man, I want to know about Sasquatch. Like, this is super interesting, right? And it was such an eye opener to like that whole subgenre of people, that I was kind of blown away that like I don't know anything about any of this, right? This was completely outside of what my regular day to day was. And I'm like you. I don't necessarily think that they exist, but I'm not going to say that they don't either. So it's interesting to me, for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean,
My personal opinion is the absence of evidence is not evidence in of itself. So I'm just going to keep an open mind.
when you
See, I
have
tried.
people who make the argument about, well, how come we've never found a body? How come we've never found hair? And there are a lot of people who believe that Sasquatch is actually an interdimensional being. So they exist out of phase with us, but they can cross over. So that's where we see them, but we haven't found any evidence because they cross back and we can't access their dimension, even though they can access ours. And I was like, okay,
I
that's a
actually,
theory. That's
I
interesting.
actually buy that thinking more than like I try to give everything an honest belief in, but I mean we're clear cutting so much, like we should have had by accident. And I've noticed like one thing that frustrates me, since we've got better cell phones and high quality cameras, all these ghosts and alien and Bigfoot pictures, nothing's coming in clear. Nothing really. Trail cams everywhere. Like, we're so wired where we should accidentally. However, the dimensional thing, maybe we can't pick them up on cameras because of an interdimensional phase. That part I can get. That's probably why I'm such a nerd and like writing science fiction. But actually, just thinking there's a giant Bigfoot bear man walking through the woods, eating berries, and just avoiding trail cams like a champ. I find I have a hard time with that one. Unless it's just Brent mowing his lawn and people are thinking it's Bigfoot there. I don't know.
So like we're all pretty big guys. Like I've probably been mistaken for Bigfoot. I've got enough hair on me that I probably at some point somebody thought that I was a Bigfoot walking to the lake or something. But
Yeah, I got size 13.
I would look just like an albino ape man.
Charlie, how is it writing in a shared universe where you have
Well, that's
you
a
have to
great
kind of
question.
coordinate with a bunch of other authors to make sure that you're all on the same page?
Yeah, so it's actually not as daunting as some people think it is. There is a world Bible. And so before I even started, I mean, other than my Sasquatch with the 50 idea, before I really started writing, I read the other 4 books in the series that were published at the time. So it was, I think, 3 novels and an anthology, just so I could really immerse myself with what was already there. And then there's also a world Bible that I read because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to break the universe.
Sure.
Because that's the biggest concern when you're writing in somebody else's sandbox. You don't want to break their toys. You want to follow their established rules. And so there were a few things that I was like, I wonder if, and I would send a message to John and Lucas and they'd be like, yeah, that's really cool. Or what are you thinking? No. So you kind of have these guardrails to keep you on track. But I didn't find it suffocating at all because really my story, it's set in the Faye Wars, but it's kind of its own thing because other than mentioning in passing what happened to get us to where we are, my characters don't interact with other characters in the universe. They're their own thing over here in their own little island. And the second book, it's the same thing. It's a continuation. So I've got the first book, Northwest Front, and then the second book that just released, Fire and Ice. And it's all of the same characters, all of my same characters. And so some people have asked, do I need to read all the Faye Wars first? Can I start with yours? And mine's a good entry point into the series. So you could read Northwest Front first and then go read all the others. Or if you like to go in order, start with Onslaught and then work your way through. I mean, it depends. But I wrote it with the intention of making it its own entry point into the universe.
That's
so
awesome.
cool.
That's such a great way to do that versus you have to start at A and go to Z. And I love the idea of kind of the little pockets of of stories that happen sometimes. And I've always found that really interesting that you get a completely unique view. Like your view is probably completely different than what a Delta Force operator in New York City is, right? And that's just a super cool way to kind of make that happen. And very much like what you and Will did in Running with Sharp Objects, right? Like they're tied together at some point, but they're also very different.
Yeah, with Running with Sharp Objects, it was a theme that translated through all the various stories. The theme of sharp, pointy things. Yeah, that one right there. And so, so with that, it wasn't that the stories were necessarily tied together other than no, that was the first one. Sorry, I'm getting my anthologies confused. But each story had the theme of a sharp, pointy object. And so that's what the stories were all about. And that was a lot of fun. That was a really fun anthology. Well, go ahead.
Your story in that was absolutely wonderful. And I reread it this morning just so I could prepare for this because, for me, it's like 11:22. I had time. But what is so awesome is the whole theme kind of funnels you into having action as a centerpiece, but you didn't do that. You had character development and internal conflict as your centerpiece of friction in the story. And it was brilliantly done.
Oh, thank you.
It was brilliantly done. And also, as a mark of an experienced writer, you did time lapses flawlessly. That is so hard to get. That is so hard to get in writing is when you have time jumps. And I generally keep them few and far between because I know how hard they are to pull off. But you did it multiple times in a short story and it made the short story blossom. So I'm really, really impressed with what you did there.
Thank you, Will. I really appreciate that. Yeah, Celia Blunt, she was an interesting character for me. And that was another one where sometimes you hear the open call and this is what it's about and this is what we want you to do. And then you kind of start, thinking, oh, what if I this? What if I that? What if I this? And with her, it was very much okay, I'm going to go back a little bit. I'm a huge Stargate SG-1 fan. That is my absolute favorite show of all time. And one of my favorite tropes is the trope of the false god. So your gods are false. Here's a machine gun and some C4, right? And so with this story, I got to take that trope and work with it. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and your world building was great because it came in little chunks. And me not being familiar with the universe you were writing about, it didn't matter. And that was what was so great because you gave us enough background in digestible chunks in a way that logically made sense to where I had a basic understanding of the world that short story was in without having read anything else in that universe. And I thought that was wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, with those few things I was really bad about the info dumps. Like, really bad. Like, Harley, I just hit a brick wall reading this. Don't do this. And so, through trial and error, if the reader can discover the story alongside the character, I think that helps to make the story feel more real. And so that's what I try to do, especially with world building, because that's something that I struggle with. My characters are either in a white room or it's an info dump. So I try really hard to, you know, like you said, sprinkle it in and only reveal what is absolutely necessary in that moment. And that's the beauty of the short story, right? You don't have the luxury of 100,000 words. You have 10,000 if you're lucky. Most short stories are closer to 7. And so how can you cram your story, your character development, your world building, your dialogue into 7 to 10,000 words? The answer is very carefully.
Yeah.
So thank you, Will. That's really high praise. And that is actually the only story that I've written in that universe. However, there's a third Universes at War anthology, and so I'm considering writing another one with Celia and Waz in the new one, which is Talking with Strangers.
Hmm.
I
That's
just
so
have
cool.
another, yeah, I just have another project to wrap up first. So it's like, okay, you know what it's like, right, guys? You see this open call and it's like, oh, it's in 6 months. I got time, right?
Yeah.
And then you get a phone call. Hey, I've got this project. Are you interested? Yes. And then 2 weeks later, hey, are you? Yeah, yes. Give me all the things. And now I'm looking at my calendar going, what have I done?
Well,
I haven't
I
had
did
that problem.
I followed in with
No one
the
calls
open
me.
submission, and I'm very scared because mine is just a little bit longer than the cutoff, but it was such a good story that I was like, look, I'm just gonna go in with all guns blazing and see what happens, and if Chris doesn't like it, then there's always next year.
Right. One of the great things about working with Chris is he's really good about feedback. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I like your story, but, or your story was great. Here's a contract. And yeah, in running with Sharp Objects and Elevator to Hell, which is the first one, I competed for my slot in both of those. I wasn't an invited author in either one, so I was right there with you. Well, when he made the announcement, I was like, "Hey, look at that! Yay, we made it!"
I got a wonderful email back from him. I didn't get selected for the Sharp Objects, but I got a wonderful email back from him that was like, I mean, I was expecting a, hey, thanks, but no thanks. And
Right.
it was like, I mean, it was this full page email, like, hey, I really enjoyed the story, like this portion of it, this needs some work. And it was like, this is great. I mean, for a very new author, it was huge to get something back from Chris, that was that detailed for me to try to make me a better author. And I was as happy with that as getting in the anthology. I just thought it was super great that he would take the time to do that for me. So it was really,
Yeah, he's a wonderful publisher and a really great guy. So working with him, I mean, I've been so fortunate. All the publishers that I've worked with are just fantastic people. And it's been for me, everything's been a really positive experience. I mean, I tend to look at the bright side of things anyway, because
sure.
life's dark as it is. Why try to make it worse? But, working with Chris and John and even Hillbilly at Three Ravens, they're all great guys. They give you support, they give you encouragement, they give you feedback. I mean, I haven't had a bad experience, really.
Did you
So,
publish it all, like as an indie, or have you pretty much published consistently with publishers?
so I got started with short stories and open calls. That's where I cut my teeth. I didn't write Whistles of the Wendigo until I had written probably 5 or 6 short stories, not all of them published.
Yeah.
And so I'm contemplating self-publishing something in the future, but I don't think I'm there yet, because I want to make sure that I have an established fan base and people who like what I do and who enjoy my work before I try to publish on my own. And I've had some author friends tell me that I'm doing it backwards, but that's how I'm comfortable.
Sure.
And
Sure.
That's very similar to how Andy Weir got started. He started off in a writing group, and he had established a small fan base. And when they encouraged him to take a short story and turn it into a novel, he self-published on Amazon, and that small established writer base all pre-ordered his book, and it gave Amazon all the algorithmic sales data they needed to spring it to the top. And that was
Nice.
the secret to his success.
Oh, I did not know that.
Hmm.
Excellent. Very
So
cool.
When you
If you don't mind,
mention,
well-
you know, like you're doing it backwards. Go ahead, Gary. Or, yeah, sorry, Gary.
Oh no, I was just like, we only have her for a little bit of time here, Brent. Stop hogging. Uh, I'm more curious of the. I'm actually really curious about how you've managed to go from genre to genre while keeping your name. And you know, you always hear, oh, if you go to this genre, you're going to need to do a pen name, or if you do this, you're going to need to do another. You managed to do all this while using you as yourself as the author. And I guess my question is two-part. One, how did you find that? And third, could you go back to just writing a regular science fiction, or do you feel that mixing the genres is where it's at right now? Because that seems to be a big question.
So I started with urban fantasy, which didn't get published. My first published story was Phoenix Initiative First Missions, which is sci-fi / space opera / mil sci-fi. Mil sci-fi is my first love. That is the genre that I've always enjoyed to read and to watch. As I mentioned, Stargate, SG-1, my favorite show ever. And so with the mil sci-fi and the military fantasy, there's a lot of overlap in a fan base. And at LibertyCon last year, I actually had 10 to 15 minutes with Bill Fawcett. And I asked him about your question, Gary, you know, because I heard the same thing. If you're going to write in science fiction, you have one pen name. If you're going to do fantasy, have another pen name, romance, another pen name, etc. And he said, well, the thing is, because you have mil sci-fi and mil fantasy, you've got that military aspect tying your fan base together. So in your specific case, you don't need a separate pen name. Now, if I were to go and write romance or something, you know, something or straight horror, then I might want to consider another pen name.
Something not adjacent, in other words.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But
Like
anything that
you could get away with space opera if you're a mil SF writer and vice versa, because even though they're not exactly the same thing, they're like cousins in a way.
right,
As long as
exactly.
you keep the military
And
aspect,
I,
you do
you know, like I
military
said, I
horror,
started
military
out in short
romance.
stories, and then that's a thought too. Yeah, exactly.
We know Brent's really
But
looking into the
that
military
was
romance
kind of how
stuff.
it happened.
Man, do I want to write a? I'm joking. No
I've been
military
following along
romance.
I've been following along in the Discord. I think it's a great idea. You should totally go for it.
Sexy dragons.
I think if anybody can do it,
No
it's
I
way.
have
Brent.
people teasing me that I need to write. Yeah. Yeah. People are teasing me that I need to write Sasquatch other things. And I'm like, I like
Ooh.
to sleep at night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got heat just for including a moose in one of my books.
I don't want to write anything that my grandchildren would look at some point and be like, "Oh, Grandpa wrote this." You know, like this. There's some sketchy stuff out there.
Well,
Yep,
they're already going to be
that's where
amazing.
I'm at.
people,
It's like, I
Brent.
don't want my kids to be like going through my bookshelves when I die.
Like my kid, when I
Yep.
when I told him I wrote a book, he's like,
yeah,
really?
yeah. There's you know, you talked about Stargate SG-1 as an influence, like, and I loved the more it was one of those shows that I didn't catch all the time. But the ones I did catch, I loved. Like, they did great character building. They really did a great job of like taking the ideas of that movie and just stretching it and giving you a lot of background on it and all that. Do you find yourself doing the same thing when you're? And I guess what I'm asking is, when you write a book like your Sasquatch book, how much do you go into the background of like that specific type of Faye, right? Because as you're making it all yourself, I find myself like pretty soon I'm like, well, I just spent 6 hours working on like how these robots work in my, you know, in my novel, and I've got no words written today, but I have 38 pages of background on how the factory works that made the droid that, you know, that I used for 7 lines. So
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, and yeah, research purgatory is a thing. When I was writing Whistles with a Wendigo, it actually took me 6 months longer than it probably should have to write it, because I spent literally 6 months in research purgatory. Because historical fiction, and you know, Civil War, I knew if I got something wrong, everybody was going to let me know about it. And so I entered a state of, I guess you would call, research paralysis, because subconsciously I was so afraid that if I got something wrong, people wouldn't like my book,
sure.
and I couldn't do that. And so I was so in my own head with, I got to get those research right. and I better not write anything, because if I write something and it's wrong, I'm going to have to fix it. So I'm just
Yeah.
going to, and it was fear, and it was all fear. Looking back, I was like, I want to slap myself. You stupid idiot. What the heck is wrong with you? Just write the damn story.
At the
Have
same
So it's
time,
definitely a thing.
have you read the
like I just found as a retired intel guy, you can only do so much research anyways, right? Like, because especially for mill sci-fi or science fiction, you have to make it believable, like you said, or people will correct you. But if you don't add that fantastic to it and kind of go, yeah, you're pretty accurate, but then you went this way, and like, yeah, it's science fiction. That's the whole point. That's one thing I just kind of found immediately when I started writing, that I want to stay as true as possible, but it's also this many 100 years in the future. So if anybody gets that upset, I'm just going to say, well, things have, like, I love the term 90s liberal. So, I mean, let's face it, things change, you know? So I always kind of want to keep that aspect
Yeah,
that although
they do.
some things stay the same for structure and ease of understanding, you got to kind of still blow that fourth wall open, right?
yeah.
And
SM
that's why I
Sterling
called,
wrote a series
and that's why
called
I called
Dies the
Stargate
Fire,
SG-1 did.
that
They did
happens.
that really.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So SM Sterling wrote this series called Dies the Fire, and it's set in the Pacific Northwest. And the original setting of the first book happens like over the hill from me, like 2 miles away from where I'm at.
Wow.
And I remember reading that, you know, and this was probably late 90s. And I remember reading that and being like, well, this is wrong. That hill's on the other side of this, whatever. Right. And it was really upsetting to me. And I thought, well, this is completely wrong. And then I looked and like, he just picked a point on the map and like, this is the spot that I'm going to set this story at. He lives in Maine or someplace. Right. And so it was one of those things where it's like, of the thousands of readers that he had of this book, there's going to be this super small group of people that understand that is, you know, specifically wrong. And it's probably larger with a group of Civil War historians, right? You're going to piss off a lot more historians, but like at some point it's you got to just make it fun too. And the rule of cool has to kind of fit in there someplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And then with like the Sasquatch research, I put enough of the mythology and theory in the story to kind of nod to those enthusiasts who have those interesting beliefs, as well as, you know, tying in the Native American mythology and folklore as well, because I really wanted to honor that
Sure.
as part of the story.
Yeah.
But again, it's a story. So those elements enhance the story, but they're not the entire story. And so, yeah, research is good. It gives you a benchmark. I think you need to understand something, or at least have a basic understanding before you can write something. And I'm more of a pantser than I am a plotter. Oh, good Lord. Wow, Will, that's amazing.
You know, the most impressive thing about that, Will, is you have it blown up to a 14 by 21 or whatever. That's
My sister's PhD dissertation is on AI tools for human resources.
Oh, interesting.
okay. So she had some spare time on her hands.
I came over to her house and she was dying laughing, and my nephew grabbed me and was like, Uncle Will, you need to go look at the refrigerator. And there it was, hanging there. All
Wow.
because I put one moose in one book.
Hey, you know what?
And
I'll
I
tell you
did
what-
it just so I could end the chapter with and somewhere off in the distance the moose was wholly disinterested.
Which is a great thing to do.
Well, that poster reminds me of, I went to I went to a local book festival, and there were various authors, you know, set up there. And apparently the audience was not my normal audience. It was mostly romantasy and romance readers. And one of the authors down the row, she had a full-size poster of one of her book covers, and it was a romance book cover, 2 characters kissing. And a couple of the ladies who saw that actually like sidled up to it with their phones and pretended like they were the lady on the cover kissing the creature on the cover and taking selfies. And I went, wow, this is not my audience. But I thought, you know, what a great marketing idea,
But
right?
look
Blow
at
up your
Brent's
cover.
smile. Look at Brent's smile. He's like, yes.
Yeah, man. You're giving me ideas. I should be writing all this down. What am I
You're
doing
like,
here?
I need keyword research right now.
Right? Yeah. And I just thought it was amazing marketing. It's like, yeah, you know, blow up your cover to full
Yeah.
size and see what happens.
That's awesome.
It is funny how the different genres.
What else
can
you guys
do
got?
that.
Any questions from
Yeah, I was just more like looking
Mhm.
at the whole introspective that each genre has its own ridiculously huge loyal fan base. Now, for yourself, do you find the Mill SF fan base just as welcoming, or have you had any issues with the Mill SF sci-fi opera fan base at all? Like, how have you found? Because I'm always curious to hear how other people have interacted. Because this is still very new to me, so I just get how much people love Will, and that's about it.
Well, Will's a great guy. How could you not love Will?
I know,
Especially with
right?
the hair in that picture.
Right. Yeah. So for me, that was some
Oh, yeah.
epic hair. Yeah.
That hair was
Yeah,
epic.
that was everybody when they retire from the military is obligated to grow their hair out in some real weird fashion just because they can.
And never shave
So-
again, or for at least 6 months.
Yep, that's why the
Something
firemen
like
grow the
that.
beards when they're done
Uh-huh.
too. So
Yep.
I've been growing a beard.
So to
for
answer your
8 years.
question, Gary, I nice. So I
On
found
his
that
back.
Wow.
let the woman answer the question.
it's fine. It's fine. He has follow-up questions. It's fine. It's all good.
More forest fires coming your
So
way.
starting out in the short stories. Oh yeah, I woke up to smoke this morning. It was crazy. I'll send you guys a picture when we're done recording it. Yeah, the sun was cosplaying Mars. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So back to Gary's question. So starting out in short stories, specifically shared universe short story with the Four Horsemen universe, a lot of those fans liked my story, and I had interacted with a lot of the authors. So I was already somewhat of a known quantity in that space, even before I started writing. So they were pretty much automatically welcoming because I started out as a fan
Mhm.
and then became an author, and they were like, this is awesome. You're writing now. Fantastic. So that's kind of how I broke into it. I wasn't really trying to break into anything. I just really loved the books, and I enjoyed the other authors and their works outside of that property and got to know people. So I guess I kind of fell into it, you could say. But it seems to be working out because I'm also now a core author in the 4HU 2.0. So that's
Oh, nice.
very exciting.
That's super cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 2.0 is like the next phase in the universal narrative.
Yes. So the Four Horsemen universe original arc, 111 books, is closed. And then we're going to fast forward 60 years. And then the 2.0 is going to start. So it's same universe, but there's some different rules because of things that happened in the last few books. But considering it's the universe that got me reading again, which got me writing again, I'm pretty stoked.
Nice. That's
I
awesome.
love that Four Horsemen universe, and it was my son was he was about 13ish, I think 14ish when those started coming out, and so like we read those together, and it was such a great opportunity for us to kind of like, you know, as a father and son to kind of like enjoy something together. And it was super cool, and yeah, to see where they've taken that, and I could never keep up. Like at some point it was like there was so many books and series coming out, I was like, I don't know where to go with this. But it is such a just well developed universe, and it's so cool for you to be a part of that. I love that they've kind of moved and like, hey, we're done with this one, and we're going to now do this next thing and give some new people an opportunity to play in the same sandbox.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. It's
I
Now-
just
amazing.
love
with
all their
that-
covers. Their
Yeah.
cover art is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now with that, Charlie, what would you say? What's one of the favorite?
Right here,
What's
yeah.
one of your favorite series that you've read or are currently reading?
So Four Horsemen universe, honestly, I've read all of the books even
Right.
before I started writing. So I think I want to say it was in 2019. My husband joined the fan club, and
Mhm.
because it was like COVID was starting and things were shutting down, nobody could really get together. And so the Merc group that he was in, the Stormbreakers, they would have weekly chats on Messenger. And so he'd be out on the porch visiting with them, and I'd be in the house doing mom stuff and, you know, come outside, see what he's doing. And I got to know some of the people that were in the Stormbreakers. And then after a few months, he's like, so what do you think of these guys? Like, oh, they sound like really cool people. Like, do you want to join the fan club? I'm like, I've never joined a fan club. I guess. Okay, cool. But you have to read the book first. I'm like, you're giving me homework to join a fan club. Really, honey?
That's great.
And so he hands me a copy of Cartwright's Cavaliers and says, you know, quit quit doom scrolling on your phone, read a book. You'll thank me later. I'm like, okay, fine. So I started reading it. And at this point, I think there were like 50 or 60 books in the universe. Read the first one. I'm like, oh, well, that was pretty good. I liked it. Oh, there's another one. Picked up the second book. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm in the fan club now. Join the fan club. Next thing I know, I'm like powering through 60 some books.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've read all of them, and they're all fantastic. They're a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
So you mentioned, your husband was in the military. Is that right?
Yeah, he was 11 Bravo in the National Guard before we met.
Okay. So, myself not being, being a former military, and it sounds like you're not former military either. How is it? Luckily I have, like, it sounds like you probably bounce stuff off of your husband on the regular, and these two yahoos, I bounce stuff off on the regular too.
We fly together.
How is it like not being ex-military and trying to capture that?
So the first story I kind of, the second story I thought about in my brain had characters who were infantry, and it was basically my husband's buddies. They
Sure.
were the inspiration for these characters. And so certain mannerisms, certain phrases and ways of speaking and physical descriptions, I was like, oh, okay, fun. So taking people that I knew in real life and making them characters or basing a character off of them was kind of how I started out doing it. And
Mhm.
then if I have questions, I'll ask my husband. And I've got a lot of friends who are former military, and they've been really helpful with, answering my questions. And worst case, on the bookshelf, I have a bunch of old manuals that my husband picked up at a garage sale years ago. So sometimes I'll ask him a question and he'll just point to the bookshelf like, okay, fine. Make me do my own research. Be that way. But it's good because he can tell me the answer, or I can learn the answer on my own.
Sure.
Which one am I going to retain? The
Yeah.
one I look up on my own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because it's from from doctrine.
But there's a lot of aspects that you can't learn from a manual that you can only learn from interacting with the culture.
True.
And it looks like you have your own private window into the culture, which makes a huge difference.
It does help. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Gary, you had a question or you were saying something?
Oh, no, I just think it's really cool that, because like with doctrine, as long as you read the doctrine, your facts are there. So I'd almost, like, being retired military myself, I would almost think that's an advantage when you're writing mil sci-fi, because you get the doctrine of it, but then you still get to play how you see it in your mind without the bad habits or the experiences or the nuances that people go through in the military. So it's almost like, I find some people, they do it really well where they're like, it's almost like, yeah, this person's a real recruit, and they're, you know what I mean? Because they understand it, but they're telling it through different eyes than you would have seen it. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing that people don't serve, but I know the hardcore fans out there, you better make sure your doctrine's right. Or at least some countries' doctrine. Like, I find I use Canadian doctrine a lot because I'm Canadian. But the irony is Canada has all this doctrine that we actually don't follow because we don't do anything. We do, but not on America's scale, obviously. So, and we're a much smaller military. So sometimes changing doctrine for a maneuver to confuse the enemy is a lot easier when there's like maybe 3 sections out there compared to a battalion of you guys, right? So I find that way, as long as I follow my doctrine, but then have a bit of fun with it, so far so good. But at the end of the day,
Wasn't that the complaint of the Germans in World War II, that Americans don't follow their own doctrine? Like if Americans would read their own doctrine, it would be much easier to fight them in a war.
What was it? Who was it
Keep
who
them on their
said?
toes. How else
Yep.
are we going to win?
Who was it who said they wanted Canadian troops, German officers, and American equipment, as along the same lines, right? Like, like
Yeah. I'm not sure, but it sounds very, to the point.
yeah, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, I
how-
think that goes back to the research thing too. It's like,
Oh yeah, like it just one thing I've tried to just put into my stories is, oh, sorry, what?
Go ahead, Gary.
Oh, okay, sorry. I find I'd like to join doctrine and join, like, I always find we're stronger together. Like you said, it's already a dark place, so why continue all this isolationism when the reality is we'll get further together than we ever will by ourselves.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Charlie, I did want to ask you about going back to what you said, like when you are doing things kind of in reverse of what a lot of other authors do. do you find yourself, where do you find your best engagement with your readers? Is it on like a social media platform, or do you do an email list, or like how do you find your engagement works best for your readers?
So I do all the things. I have an email newsletter that I send once a month, unless I have something like a local event or a new release, then I send more frequently. I have a Substack. I have a YouTube channel, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, and I'm on LinkedIn. Am I forgetting anything? Probably. So it's kind of like, we're all shouting out into the void.
Sure.
See me, look at me, buy my book, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of, independent and self-published authors out there. And so I don't say that we're competing for attention, because I really believe in the rising tide theory. There isn't one of us, not even Rick Partlow, who can write fast enough to keep all these people satiated. There's no way. There's no way. So we're
Although
not in
Rick is trying.
competition with each other at all, in my opinion. Rick's amazing. He's such a super cool dude, and he is a machine. At LibertyCon, we went to the range day, and I was driving, and he rode with me and my husband. And as we're driving the hour to the range, carrying on a full conversation, he's got his laptop, he's got his hotspot, he's just typing away while we're talking. And I'm looking over at him when there's not traffic. I'm like, Rick, do you want me to shut up so you can concentrate? He's like, no, you're fine. And we even sang along to the radio while he was typing on his laptop. He's a machine. He's such an
that's
inspiration.
next
He's
level.
amazing. But yeah, I don't think we're. Sorry?
That's just next level. Like,
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, he's a machine.
Absolutely.
That's why we established the Partlow as a way of measuring daily word count, because his average daily word count is his target daily word count is 3,000. So, and because we didn't want it to be metric, it's divisible in 50 word increments known as parsecs.
Yeah, that MilSF group, the Military Science Fiction podcast, that's such a fun podcast, or the Discord, sorry, is such a great Discord to be a part of, and they're just a fun group of guys to be on over there, and we have some crossover
not
with
as
ours
fun as
as
FNG.
well, and I love seeing, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, just great to be a part of that system, and I love, when you jump on ours and you add something to it. I love the fact that like Discord exists, right? Because I found that like when I first started writing, and you're sitting in your office all by yourself and you're doing your thing, you want a certain percentage of interaction. I mean, I need my time to do what I need to do, but I love the fact that it's like someone, maybe being in the next room, right? That you can shout at them if you need to get a little bit of human interaction in, and it's just a great place to be. So yeah, and I guess that's what I would say is, like, find yourself a group that you can be a part of, whether that's, MilSF or, our group or whatever. I mean, or Charlie's group. It's just super cool to be a part of something where you get a little bit of interaction with the people that you enjoy to hang out with.
Absolutely. So back to your original question, Brent, I would say I probably get the most engagement on Facebook, because again, I started out as a fan and got to know a lot of authors and a lot of other fans through Facebook and Facebook groups and things like that. And so then when I started writing, I didn't create a whole new account. My original Facebook account actually got nuked a bunch of years ago. I still don't know what I did wrong. I have no idea. Probably nothing, but Facebook thought otherwise. So I just converted my existing Facebook account to my author account.
Sure.
And created a page and created a group of my own, Charlie's Hearth, if anybody wants to check it out. So I would say that's probably where I get the most engagement, but that's because that's where I started. For a while on TikTok, I was getting a couple hundred views per video. Some of my YouTube shorts have gotten over 1,000 views, but it's not consistent. And lately I think I'm shadow banned. I don't know what's going on, but over the last couple months, I'm lucky if I get 10 views on my TikTok videos. Again, I must have done something wrong. I don't know what I did. They won't tell me. So, but yeah, engagement's the thing. I think it's, definitely find your tribe, find your people. And I'm naturally very shy. I know, hard to believe, but I really am. I'm very shy, especially in person, unless I get to know somebody. And then I'm going to walk up to you and give you a hug and say, hey, you, come here. But if I don't know you, I tend to be very reserved and quiet. But
stranger danger.
it was really hard for me to put myself out there. Yeah, right. It's a thing. Stranger danger is totally a thing. So it was hard for me to put myself out there, but I'm so glad I did, because if I hadn't have been comfortable with being uncomfortable, I would never have grown. I would never have met John Holmes. I would never have,
Yeah.
you know, I would never have met any of the authors that I happened to send a friend request to, 5+ years ago.
Right.
So who knows where I'd be if I wouldn't have just, hit the button or like, hey, let's go to this convention on the other side of the country and meet
Yeah.
all these people that we've never met before. Yeah, let's do that. That's great. And it was fantastic. So I guess my point is, put yourself out there. Don't be afraid, because the people in this community are so much more supportive and so much more welcoming than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah. I've never had a bad interaction with another author. And that's saying something, right? Because I'm very much like you, and the people I know, and the people I don't really want to associate with. Right. But when you put yourself out and you start learning that, like, oh, everybody is the same way. I mean, most authors are kind of wired the same way. And so when you do start get to knowing people, like when I first sent these two guys and like, hey, let's start this podcast. Let's do this. It was one of the scariest things I've ever done in my entire life. And I ran into burning buildings for a living. So it was like, oh my word, what am I doing? And then I got these responses back like, hey, this sounds really fun. Let's give this a try. And so it very much, I just totally echo what you're saying, that if you will put yourself out there and build some of those relationships. I love that, Rick and I got to hang out at this last, Writers Cantina, in Utah. And like, you just really do get to, like, you start pulling some new people in, and it just, it builds such a super cool community. And I think that's what everyone's looking for at some point.
Yeah.
And I think he watches this podcast because he definitely engages in the comments on YouTube.
Oh,
Yeah.
Rick.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. So Gary, I'm sorry. It's been super hard to kind of get you in. Like, I think we're in the middle of a conversation, and then your audio finally comes in. Did you have anything else you wanted to add or throw in?
Actually, no, I'm just enjoying the conversation. I'm on vacation, so this is kind of fun. I just like hearing such a different aspect than I've heard from any other authors. So this has been great information, great wealth of knowledge. If anything, I would just ask Charlie, what is something you would give all the people out there who are trying to become writers? Because that was the whole point of this. Is okay. So you wrote a book, or you're trying to write a book. Then what? What is your 2 cents on these people trying to get out there and get published or get noticed, or just even to start a book? What do you got for them?
So the most important thing that I've learned is that writing anything is not a solo effort. It's very much a team sport. So whether or not you think you need help, you're going to need help. Either an editor or a cover artist or a beta reader. You can do this by yourself. However, your product is going to be stronger, and I dare say you're going to have a better experience if you let people help you along. So ask for feedback. Don't let your ego override, because most people, if you're asking somebody for feedback, it should be somebody that you trust, right? You're not going to ask advice from somebody who you don't believe. So if you're putting your work into somebody's hands and saying, please be nice to my garbage, don't hurt it too badly, you trust that person. So trust them enough when they tell you something that you don't want to hear about your story, that maybe they have a point.
Yeah.
Or better yet, get 3 to 5 people to look at your work. And if a majority of them are all saying the same thing, you should probably listen to what they're saying, even if it hurts your feelings, even if it makes you cry. Been there. I've been there, but I'm a better writer because of it. Because these people who've been doing this longer than you probably know better than you do. So listen to them, let them help you, let them guide you, and don't be afraid to ask for help, because there are so many people in this community who want to help you, who want to see you succeed. Because again, we're all in this together. And I don't think any of us are like, oh no, they're all my readers, you can't have any. No, we can't write fast enough for these people. There's no way.
Yeah.
So, let people help you, and then help other people as well. Pay it forward.
It's a lot like
Thank
Jeffrey
you.
Haskell.
That's amazing. And that's absolutely correct.
Jeffrey Haskell does that a lot. He'll always say he wants to see people succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Will, did you have a dirty tip for us?
Well, I did, and I decided that Charlie's tip was better. and I'm not talking about what she just said, which was amazing, but I wanted to go back and talk about the world building piece, and reiterate, when you world build, you only give the reader exactly what the reader needs to know at the time. Do not go on a massive monologue. Do what Charlie did on page 495 of this wonderful book, Running with Sharp Objects by CKP Publishing. And then what you do is you give the reader digestible chunks, world build as it becomes relevant, and let the character tell the story. Just like Charlie did.
Show, don't tell.
And honestly, most of the time, my characters are doing their thing. I'm just writing up the after action report.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a great way to put it.
No, Jinx, you owe me
Well,
a
guys,
beer.
thank you so much for being here today. Hey, thank you all for being here. Charlie, thanks for joining us. And
It was a pleasure.
do you have anything coming up as far as like signings or anything, or are you
Yeah.
I don't have any events or local things yet as of this moment.
Okay.
I will be at FLSCon in Virginia Beach in April of 27, and then at LibertyCon again in June of 27. So I'll be at both of those conventions. Other than that, if you want to find me locally, I do have books here in Roseburg at While Away Books, as well as Yours Truly Bookshop downtown. I have books available for sale on my website, or you can message me on Facebook, and I'm more than happy to send you a signed copy. My website, Charlie Cox, there it is, charliecox.net. Sign up for my newsletter, and if I have things happening, I will be sure to share that with you guys. And thank you again for letting me be
Cool.
here. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
No, thank
loved
you for
having you.
coming. Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
guys, anything else? Anything to add?
No,
No, I'm good on
What
my
about you,
side.
Gary?
There's so much lag here. We'll
Okay.
catch up next week.
What? Sounds great.
I
Okay.
bet, and I know what's causing all that damn lag is that damn Sasquatch.
It's all
Sasquatch
good.
with a tin hat on, taking all the waves in. So,
Might be. I'm
all
God
right,
knows.
well, we'll wrap
out
this
in
up,
Philadelphia.
and you guys do all the regular. You guys do all the regular doobly-doo stuff down there with the likes and subscribes and all the other whatever goes on with that. We'd love to see you in Discord and get to know you better. So thank you all for
appreciate
coming,
you all.
and we'll catch you next time.
Tigers.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.